Welcome to Star Citizen and a glimpse into the dynamic persistent universe. With the rather cryptic names Quantum, Quasar, as well as Virtual Artificial Intelligence, Tony Zurovec, director of the persistent universe, and at the same time one of the most experienced and long-standing employees at Cloud Imperium Games, gave us deep and detailed insights into the technologies that form the basis for many mechanics, but which we often cannot directly see on the roadmap or comprehend. Because Quantum in this context stands for the core system, which promises a credible, comprehensible and living persistent universe. We have known the term dynamic event since the Xenos Red event, which was the first of its kind and gave us a glimpse of what we can now experience more and more often and soon on regular basis. And behind Quanta, there is nothing else than all the AI-controlled NPCs, which act and react through a complex system, comprehensible and believable, which pulls us too much deeper into the verse of Star Citizen. So all the existential foundations which are less visible and we may not be able to look at them at the in-game event, but which create the Star Citizen we have wanted for so long. And these foundations should be implemented in the game already this year. So, finally, a Star Citizen? Tony explains the Quantas, the AI population of the persistent universe, which is supposed to act in a comprehensible and credible way based on given attributes. On the one hand, there are basic competencies such as trade, combat, production and science. The system is expanded by traits, basic characteristics such as aggressiveness, morality, intelligence and ambition. In this example, which is initially based on only one trait, aggressiveness, a Quanta, this AI NPC initially decides on the basis of his aggressiveness level for an aggressive activity, such as in the security sector, or as the opposite, minimal aggressive as a factory worker. However, the pay of a task also has an influence on this, whereby a non-aggressive factory worker would also take on a job in the security sector if the pay was correspondingly high. And the combination of a second characteristic, morale, decides whether the security tasks end in a pirate or a bounty hunter. And here we have only brought two traits and payment into play, whereas the whole system goes much deeper. For the control of a Quanta, every single simple AI, the backend system, which has also been significantly improved recently, is the basic prerequisite. Here it is crucial to create sufficient background capabilities to be able to use Quantas appropriately in all necessary AI areas, which ultimately has a clear impact on a credible and comprehensible persistent universe. And the increase from 3,000 Quantas up to 100,000 creates the prerequisite for this. With the ODIN system, which shows the developers in real time the dynamic commodity cycles, production cycles as well as all background activities in the game, this technology makes it possible to directly evaluate and influence the game economy, creating immediate possibilities to recognize possible inconsistencies or disturbances in the trade system or mission system, and to act on them accordingly. In terms of dynamics, a heavily used trade route would then become increasingly less lucrative and less used routes would become more lucrative. Accordingly, this dynamic system is also applicable in the area of missions and all background processes. Aluminium was mentioned as an example. This resource, which can be mined as raw material, is extracted through the game mechanic of mining, processed further in the mechanics of refineries, and then ultimately brought into the commodity cycle through the mechanics of the trade and transport system. In the background, this material is ultimately further processed by various production facilities to produce components, weapons and other trade goods. The resulting commodity cycle is fully simulated in the background, with interventions and individual areas potentially affecting other areas. In my opinion, this simulation on the entire economy is most comparable to the already advanced and extensive space simulation EVE Online. Although Star Citizen creates influences through player actions, it does not yet aim for a completely player-dependent commodity cycle. And the system is not only applicable to trade or the goods cycle, but also to the entire mission system, as well as behavior-dependent mechanics, including piracy and the opposing security sector. This dynamic system can react to shifts and take appropriate measures. Depending on the ships used and their reputations, players or even groups of players can be offered different missions that are oriented to the current dynamic conditions. Because the mission system is also continuously analyzed, it can also be dynamically adapted. By means of the mission analysis, the upper right corner shows the successful and recurring completion of various missions, while the lower left corner indicates a permanent failure. In this way, not only can failures and problems in individual missions be identified and dealt with, but the difficulty levels of the mission can also be adjusted and varied, making it possible to create the most interesting and challenging game experience possible. This makes it possible to offer different types of players new and adapted experiences that remain challenging and exciting. At the same time, faulty missions as well as partial mechanic errors are quickly and effectively identified. And another exciting area is the AI reaction to change. This point indirectly introduces the data running and extended scanner mechanics, whereby an exploration ship flies to a moon to scan for lucrative minerals and resource deposits. These resource deposits are also generated dynamically, but have a basically predefined value for a certain area. In this example, a scout ship on this moon encounters a significant resource deposit, and this information is passed on by the scout ship, which ultimately corresponds to the data running mechanics. As a reaction of the Quantas, this deposit is now increasingly approached. Since the necessary mining effort is low, while the yield is initially high. Through the increased mining of the exhaustible resource deposits, however, this effort becomes increasingly higher and the yield lower, which ultimately causes the AI to search for more lucrative alternatives, while the scout ship in turn searches for new deposits and passes them on. Because, especially for the data running mechanics, a corresponding AI reaction is a necessary component. Therefore, an implementation of this mechanics is to be expected soon, after the dynamic elements are to be introduced into the game towards the end of this year. With the differentiation of the two used different AI systems, not only a credibility and traceability of the Quantas is made possible, but also a necessary performance optimization. Here is consumption AI, the visible representation of NPCs in the game world, which is of course significantly more resource intensive, since the visible NPCs have to be animated and controlled, is what we see as players. The virtual AI, on the other hand, is very resource efficient, since the NPCs are not visible here, but are permanently simulated in the background. The first example is a random encounter with a pirate. This is generated, and after we have made our escape, the pirate is removed from the system again, whereby no further resources are required. The situation is different for the next objective, the space station Port Olisar. This is also active in the background through the virtual AI technology, whereby the NPCs there follow comprehensible actions according to their specific specifications, characteristics and attributes. If a player approaches this area active in the background or an NPCs, there is a seamless transition from the virtual AI to the consumption AI. The Quanta running in the background become visible to the player in the area and can be interacted with. In the next example, the player is attacked and destroyed by the Quanta Dragon, whereby this Quanta has now received a crime set and a bounty. Here the prerequisites which also apply to players are required. And after the attack took place in the monitored room, a corresponding bounty mission now follows on the AI-controlled attacker. This attacker, in turn, pursues a comprehensible activity and action on the basis of his attributes and characteristics, whereby in this case, these characteristics, which apply specially to this Quanta, are geared towards continuing the criminal career. And here these processes take place in the resource-saving virtual AI mode, after no player is in the immediate vicinity. Through the dynamic simulation, events and situations are automatically generated, which the player can react to and influence according to his own interests and preferences. Our AI pirate pursues his criminal career and attacks an AI-controlled merchant ship. The bounty as well as the crime stat is increased and our villain makes loot, since according to his attributes, intention to make a profit is present. Thus, the bounty mission available to a player is increased further and further, whereby constellations are also possible in which a Quanta commits crime undetected, and we can encounter him on foot in a later version of the game, as well as other players on planets, stations or in other areas. Because in the example, our professional criminal flies back to Port Olizar to spend his loot at the bar there. Since the monitored area is currently not active here, it is possible for a Dragon to receive a land request, but this is again traceable by a player, making the hunt for the Quanta Dragon even more exciting. This offers bounty hunting players the opportunity to analyze and react to the movement patterns and behaviors of NPCs. In the example, a player lines up between Port Olizar and Yila and uses a quantum interrupter to intercept the Dragon, which is still simulated in a resource-saving way, in order to collect the bounty. Thus, the mission system can be successfully expanded, increasing the challenges and making the missions much more exciting. For this, extended abilities and mechanics that are currently not used on a large scale, such as a quantum disruptor, would then also be applicable, useful and a lot of fun. And this was just an example. A simple bounty mission. Because with the dynamic events, which we already got to know with the Zenith Red event, another dynamic area is created, which not only finds its way into the game manually, but can also be set in motion automatically by direct player actions. For this purpose, various dynamic events are prefabricated by the developers, which can then react to corresponding situations and actions. Of course, it is possible to bring these events into the game manually and over a large area, but it is also planned to trigger such events dynamically due to player-based actions. In addition to the Zenith Red event, the Ninetales Lockdown event has already been announced, and in the analysis we find other interesting, obviously planned events. Fleet Week is currently underway, where on the other hand we could see a drug run, a freighter escort, the Gold Rush, the Infiltrator, Jumptown 2, as well as the security lockdown in the event drop-down menu. And of course, the Ninetales Lockdown was also there. And the first implementation of this dynamic system we already have with the commodity price alerts, which were implemented into the game on the occasion of the Invictus Week. Here we react dynamically to a special demand or an oversupply, which offers us different trading possibilities. Because these dynamic changes in the commodity circulation system are directly influenced by events in the game. If a space station is blocked, the purchase price for various goods increase due to the lack of supply. At the same time, the sales prices of the goods that are now available in oversupply at this space station decrease. This in turn creates a lucrative offer for buying and selling, which ultimately can also induct Quantas, depending on its attributes, to fly to a blocked and thus more dangerous station. And with regard to the dynamic events, these are controlled across servers, as was already the case with the Zenith Red event. This means that the start or target conditions are distributed across all servers, which enables cross-server cooperation. And it should not go unmentioned that Tony made it unmistakably clear that ICache is already in active implementation phase and that this will be completed very soon. That was one of the most interesting and far-reaching pieces of information from this update on background technologies. Thank you, Tony, for this update. I hope you liked the video and leave me a like and even a subscribe here. With the nearly finished implementation of the ICache system, the significant improvements in the dynamic backend system, as well as the comprehensible AI structures of the Quantas, the dream of a believable and comprehensible persistent universe has come a lot closer. But what is your opinion? Just one words and nothing behind them? Are we finally taking big steps towards a clearly finished Star Citizen? Feel free to write me in the video, in the Discord or in the regular Twitch streams. But the most important, as always, a big thank you to all Patreons, channel members and Twitch subscribers. You are a great motivation and without you the whole thing would not be possible in this form. Thank you guys for that, you definitely rock. Of course, as every month there will be extensive giveaways. You can find details in the announcement video, on Twitch or in the Discord. And if you're looking for like-minded people to play around in the verse, check out the Royal Retirement launch, and we are looking for an English community manager. And of course, check out our regular Twitch streams, every day at 7 PM German time. I say goodbye until next time, and as always, see you soon and see you in the verse.